Most mutants are born with one power. En Sabah Nur was born as a walking violation of biology itself. Before he was Apocalypse, before the armor, the throne, the four horsemen, En Sabah Nur was already something science couldn't fully explain. A body that rewrites its own cells, a mind that absorbs abilities like a sponge, a lifespan measured in millennia instead of decades. And according to the newest reveal, he wasn't just naturally built this way, he was found, tested, and upgraded by a literal celestial using an infinity stone. So today we're doing a full breakdown, his anatomy, his raw power, why a being like Eson the Searcher zeroed in on him out of every mutant on Earth, and how he stacks up against the strongest mutants Marvel has ever created. Because once you understand what's actually happening inside En Sabah Nur's body, villain starts to feel like the wrong word for him entirely.
My name is En Sabah Nur.
Start with the basics. Most people already know. En Sabah Nur's mutation is often classified as a form of accelerated healing paired with total cellular control, but that description barely scratches the surface. His body isn't just resistant to damage, it actively restructures itself in response to injury, disease, and even the passage of time. Wounds that would kill another mutant instantly instead trigger a process of near-total regeneration. This is also why he's survived for thousands of years. Most origin stories place his first stirrings of power in ancient Egypt, and yet he's still active in the modern era. That's not just healing, that's a body that has effectively rewritten the rules of aging for itself. Combine that with his ability to shift and reshape his own physical form, sometimes altering his size, density, and even limb structure mid-battle, and you get a physiology that behaves less like flesh and more like adaptive machinery. That's the key word to hold on to, adaptive, because everything about Apocalypse's biology exists to respond to threats in real time, which is exactly why a being like Eson would find him so useful.
That age begins now.
Here's where things escalate. En Sabah Nur doesn't just survive damage, he can absorb the powers of other mutants and beings he encounters, temporarily or sometimes permanently layering their abilities on top of his own. Over different eras of the comics, that's let him wield everything from telepathy to elemental control to raw energy projection, depending on who he's pulled power from. Think about what that actually means from a strategic standpoint. A mutant who only has one power is a known quantity. You can plan around fire or telekinesis or super strength, but a mutant whose power set can shift and expand based on what he encounters is functionally unpredictable. He's not just strong, he's a moving target that gets stronger the longer a fight goes on. That trait alone would make him interesting to study, but it's not the reason a Celestial chose him.
Press against me and be broken!
Out of every enhanced being on Earth, Eson didn't pick a telepath, a living weapon, or a mutant with godlike elemental power. He picked En Sabah Nur and called him the end of all things. The reason likely comes down to potential rather than raw output. Eson isn't a being who values power that's already maxed out. Celestials across Marvel lore are interested in specimens that represent turning points, genetic material capable of pushing evolution in a new direction. En Sabah Nur's body was already doing something no ordinary mutant's body could do, adapting, absorbing, and surviving on a scale that mimicked the kind of resilience usually reserved for cosmic beings. In other words, Nur wasn't chosen because he was the strongest mutant alive. He was chosen because his biology was the closest thing Earth had produced to a being built for permanent, uncontrolled evolution. Eson didn't create that potential. He found it and then decided to finish what evolution had only half completed. So where does pre-transformation En Sabah Nur actually rank against Marvel's most powerful mutants? Against someone like Jean Grey in a Phoenix state, Nur doesn't come close in raw cosmic output. Phoenix Force energy operates on a scale tied to reality manipulation itself. Against Professor Xavier in pure psychic terms, Nur also falls short. His mind-based abilities, when he has them, are usually borrowed rather than innate, but in terms of physical durability, adaptability, and long-term survivability, very few mutants can match him. Wolverine's healing factor is famous, but it's reactive. It repairs damage after the fact. Nur's is closer to proactive evolution, adjusting his body's baseline capabilities over time. The honest answer is that base-level En Sabah Nur isn't necessarily the single most powerful mutant in a raw stat-for-stat sense. What makes him dangerous is versatility, longevity, and unpredictability layered together. He's less a maximum output weapon and more a system built to never stop upgrading itself, which is exactly the kind of raw material a Celestial would want to finish building. That's where the Power Stone comes in. If Eson used it to complete Nur's transformation into Apocalypse, that changes the entire power conversation. The Power Stone is one of the 6 Infinity Stones, historically associated with raw destructive force on a scale capable of leveling planets when used without restraint. Channeling that kind of energy through a body already built for adaptation and absorption doesn't just make Nur stronger, it fundamentally changes what kind of threat he is. Instead of a mutant with impressive but bounded abilities, you get a being whose power ceiling is tied to a cosmic-level artifact, meaning his post-transformation strength isn't limited by mutant biology at all anymore. It's limited by however much of the Power Stone's energy Eson allowed to flow into him. That upgrade is likely what pushes Apocalypse past every other mutant on this list. Not because his base body changed dramatically overnight, but because the ceiling on his power stopped being biological and started being cosmic. Put it all together, and En Sabah Nur stops looking like a self-made tyrant, and starts looking like the end result of a very deliberate selection process, a body built for adaptation, a power set built for absorption, a celestial who recognized exactly what that combination could become, and an infinity stone used to finish the job. The real question now is whether that upgrade has a limit at all, or whether Apocalypse is still evolving toward whatever the end of all things was always meant to mean. Let me know who you think could actually stand a chance against a Power Stone empowered Apocalypse, and subscribe for the next breakdown in this storyline.